go.
There we go.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I work at the GW Center for Integrative Medicine with Misha, Dr. Kogan, and a whole other team of fantastic people. So today, I was contemplating what to discuss in today's session, and I was thinking about my patients and what people are really dealing with right now. And I decided to do kind of a hodgepodge presentation, talking about some things to think about for issues that people are facing right now. And we've all been stuck at home in this pandemic, or a lot of us stuck at home for almost a year now. And what I've noticed is a lot of people are struggling with issues around sleep and also issues around mood. And, you know, what I see is either the lack of movement, especially through the winter, or the stress of the pandemic, and then the election, and, you know, what happened at the Capitol, and just everything. People are really dealing with a lot of this right now. So I thought what I can do as a naturopathic physician is to offer you just some ideas, and a lot of it might be familiar, but some of it might be new. So I'm going to share my presentation with you and go through some slides. So let's do that. Okay. And I'm very happy to share this presentation with everyone later. So just to introduce myself, as I said, I'm a naturopathic physician and a Chinese medicine practitioner. I practice at the GW Center for Integrative Medicine. I also have practiced for almost 10 years at the GW Breast Care Center. And I teach a nutrition course in a master's program at Georgetown, and I've done that for 7 years or so. So I've got my finger in a lot of pots. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about sleep. These recommendations are all copied directly off my sleep hygiene handout. And I just want to remind everybody of some simple things you can do to help your quality of sleep if you've forgotten some of this. So first of all, allowing enough time. That's very obvious. Most people need 7 to 9 hours every night. Some people need more. Taking advantage of our natural circadian rhythm, which really is our body's old way of training to go along with the sun, to wake when the sun rises and go to bed when the sun sets. And we have hormones and chemicals in our body that support this process, and that the strongest healing and rejuvenation happens in those early evening hours. So like going to bed at 10 is going to give more rejuvenation time than going to bed at midnight, even if you get the same number of hours. So really focusing on that routine and regularity. Also remembering that even if you're asleep, having noise in the bedroom, like a TV that's going, or a radio that's going, or you know, a window that's open and something noisy happening outside. Of course, not right now with it being so cold, but you want to keep your bedroom in darkness as much as possible and quiet. Some people have, you know, these days we have our electronics with us, and just making sure to take those out of the room. Also, some people don't realize, but a cooler room can lead to better sleep quality. So usually 60 to 68 degrees is optimal for sleeping. And you don't want to be using your bedroom for anything other than sleep and intimacy. You don't want to be sitting there having phone conversations in bed, or working in your bed, or doing projects in your bed, because you want your bed to be the place where you go to relax, let go of everything, and go to sleep. Exercise. A lot of us, as I was saying in the beginning, our exercise is down. So exercise actually helps with sleep quality. And some people find that exercising early in the day helps their sleep, and some people find exercising late in the day helps their sleep. So just knowing for yourself when moving your body can be helpful. If you're having trouble sleeping, you might try going for a 20-minute vigorous walk in the evening, and seeing how that helps your sleep quality. Meditation and stress reduction, that's why we're all here, is for those activities and to learn more ways that we can have mindfulness and meditation as a stress reduction technique in our lives. Some people have a pre-sleep bed routine, which might be taking a bath or saying a prayer or writing in a gratitude journal, doing a simple stretch or yoga routine, certain breathing exercises. There are great apps now that I'm sure we've talked about on these Fridays that you can follow. There's one that I like, which actually is just a glowing ball, and you breathe along with the ball in and out, and you can change the rate and the ratio of the breathing. Avoiding electronics within 2 hours of bedtime. And also for some people, they can't eat close to bed because then their body is digesting, and when they go to sleep, it feels heavy and their sleep quality is poor. But the opposite can be true as well, where certain people will get low blood sugar in the middle of the night, and that can wake them up. So if you're somebody who tends to wake up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., and you're awake and you can't figure out why, it could be that you get low blood sugar in the middle of the night. So you can try having, a 7 to 10 gram protein snack at bedtime. And you want something that's easy to digest, that's not going to be too heavy on your stomach, but having a little protein before bed sometimes can help someone to sleep through the night. A couple of ideas, thoughts for supplements that can be helpful with sleeping. There are several botanicals that are very relaxing and sedating. My favorite one is Melissa, which is also called lemon balm. I have a picture of it here as an herbal extract, a tincture. Also Passiflora, passion flower, both of those are lovely. They're very relaxing, very calming. They don't knock you out. They're not going to make you tired the next day. They just soothe the nervous system to get the nervous system ready for sleeping. Also milky oats, also called avena. These are not the same oats that we eat. It's a different part of the plant, but it's an herb, a botanical that is calming to the nervous system. And then there's a plant called Valerian that is very sedating. So some people, Valerian is too much because it really knocks them out. But Valerian can be one that really puts people to sleep. And I actually have an opposite reaction to Valerian where it makes me hyper. So you have to watch out for that. But most people, it will put them to sleep. I have this sleepy time tea over here. All the good herbal tea brands are going to have some sort of sleep promoting tea. So Celestial Seasonings is the one that you'll find everywhere, and they have sleepy time. But there's another one called Night Night, I think, from Yogi Tea, and a few different ones. Also, for most people, melatonin is an option. That's an amino acid that our pineal gland naturally makes when the sun goes down. And because of our lights and electronics, a lot of us are not making enough melatonin. So it can be something to try in very low doses to help either get to sleep or sleep the night. Many people have heard of CBD. It's a cannabinoid from either the hemp or from the different types of cannabis plant, and that can be also very relaxing and works well. I actually have been using CBD lately for sleep, and it's doing a bang-up job, working well. Phosphatidylserine is an amino acid basically that brings down our cortisol levels. So cortisol is our stress hormone that amps us up, and phosphatidylserine will bring it down. Progesterone for certain people, I'm not advocating that for everyone, but for certain people, particularly women who are in a cycle of life where their hormones are changing, perimenopause, menopause, the low levels of progesterone may be interfering with their sleep ability. So getting some progesterone and taking that can help with sleeping through the night. Okay, so those are my sleep slides. Mood. Some ideas if mood is an issue right now. So some of us with the pandemic, I know for me, sometimes I'm just feeling sluggish or unmotivated, or like, when is this going to be over? Sometimes maybe you might feel a little depressed or down. Some people, especially with everything that's been going on politically, have been feeling very down. So if that's really getting to you, here are some things to remember. Getting good sleep might not seem like much, but it will really turn your mood around. Not enough sleep is a big cause for depression and anxiety. Also, I mentioned earlier the rhythm and routine. Having a good, go to bed and go to sleep at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every morning, eat at the same time through the day, exercise at the same time. That helps support the body's natural rhythms so that our hormones, our endocrine system can have the freedom to do what it needs to do. And so that's like balancing the adrenal glands. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all those hormones work better when we follow rhythm and routine in our life. Diet. Keep in mind that if there are foods that are causing inflammation or foods that are causing blood sugar dysregulation, either high blood sugar or low blood sugar, that will also very much affect mood. And most of us, we know about hangry, and that's sort of the obvious manifestation when someone doesn't eat and they get really grumpy. But there's a lower level where the low blood sugar or even higher blood sugar can make people feel depressed or down, just not well in general. Certain chemicals get created in the brain, which can make the brain kind of foggy. So if you're having mood issues right now, you might just think about, do you want to do a couple of weeks of a very clean diet and see, does that help your mood? Do you want to try to regulate protein so that your blood sugar is stable? Eliminate caffeine, because even though caffeine gives us a boost, it also leads later to a crash in blood sugar for certain people. Exercise, of course, boosts mood. Exercise produces endorphins that are very uplifting. And of course, emotional support. I think that's something that a lot of people are struggling with right now. Either, we might be home alone, or we might be home with the same person or the same people every day, day in, day out. So just remembering to make that effort to reestablish connections with the people that are important, the people that you love and care about, whether it's a phone call or a Zoom meeting or going for a walk together or a socially distanced get together that's appropriate, for your situation, can be very uplifting. Yeah. So supplement ideas for mood. My favorite supplement for mood issues are B vitamins. Very simple, just a simple B complex. Also fish oil, in particular the DHA omega fatty acid is very strengthening for the brain and cognition and mood. Herbs and botanicals that are very good for mood. I already mentioned Melissa earlier. I use it both for sleep and for mood. That's if you've ever smelled lemon balm, it's a very light, uplifting scent, and that's the effect of the herb on our nervous system. Ashwagandha is a plant that is called an adrenal adaptogen, and it also can be uplifting. It has a little bit of benefit for the thyroid gland. In general, a very good one for mood. Glycyrrhiza is licorice, and this is a good one for people that are really down and tired, really dragging, maybe just so much stress and now crashing. Glycyrrhiza is licorice, and it helps to promote that stress hormone called cortisol, which gives us that oomph, that get up and go, that motivation. So I use that one for those people. St. John's wort, also called hypericum. This is an herb that gently promotes serotonin in our brain. And that's, of course, our happy hormone, our happy neurotransmitter. Avena oats and passiflora I mentioned in the sleep section, but also very good for calming if someone's anxious. There's a whole other type of supplement that are called flower essences, and these are very gentle, very benign. They have almost no side effects, and they are used for emotional issues, usually emotional or energetic type issues. And the popular one that most people have heard of is called Rescue Remedy, and I have a picture of it here. You can find this, at any, probably even at CVS these days. And they're just little drops that you can put on your tongue, and they are very helpful for stressful situations. You can just keep them in the car or keep them in your bag. You can use them with children. You can use them with pets, anybody who might need a little bit of calming. And there's an amino acid called theanine that you can find in green tea and some other plants. And that one is also very calming in the brain. It calms our primary stimulatory neurotransmitter called glutamate. Theanine will calm it down. It helps produce GABA in the brain. Over here, I have a picture of a B complex, the rescue remedy that I mentioned, and another tea, an herbal tea that you can just get over the counter. This one is the tension tamer tea, which is going to have a blend of a lot of these type of herbs that are calming and relaxing. The other herb I didn't put on here is chamomile. I forgot to mention chamomile. So the other thing about mood, I just want to mention, make sure that whatever underlying issues are going on are addressed, because gut health can affect mood. We make most of our serotonin in the gut. So problems with the gut, constipation or other things. Gluten sensitivity definitely can affect mood, and hormone imbalances, of course. And also, if mood is really an issue and none of this other stuff is helping, don't be afraid to set up some sort of regular professional support, which could be psychotherapy. It could be also some type of energy work, Reiki, craniosacral therapy, acupuncture, or even a massage or body work. Of course, these days it has to be done. The person you're going to, you have to know that they're providing their service in a very safe way with regard to COVID precautions. But many practitioners now have set up good protocols that are safe. And then last but not least, I wanted to just give a slide on vaccine prep for those of us who are going to get the vaccine. When we get the vaccine, patients are asking me a lot, like, not just should I get the vaccine, but I'm a little afraid. What if I have a bad reaction? So I just wanted to share with you some things that I'm thinking about for my patients of how to prep when you're going to get the vaccine, if you have already decided to get it. First of all, make sure you get plenty of rest. That's the best thing you can do to support your body so that your body can handle the immune stimulation from the vaccine. So the night before, getting 8 to 10 hours, and then after the vaccination, just make sure you have the ability to go rest, sleep a full night's sleep, and don't have anything planned on your schedule. Avoiding inflammatory foods is also going to help your body to prepare for the vaccine. So again, sugar, caffeine, anything that irritates your personal body. And then last, not last, but the supplement wise, I do think right now, and this is completely based on my clinical thinking. This is not based on a research study or anything like that. But in my thinking, I'm suggesting that people take gentle herbal anti-inflammatories that will help the body to tolerate the vaccine response and not go overboard. Because some of the negative responses we're seeing are really when the inflammatory process from the vaccine, which is natural, that's what you want, just goes overboard. And, high fevers, aches and pains, that kind of thing. So some herbs that are very helpful for that: turmeric, boswellia, which is frankincense. Also vitamin C and quercetin are our body's natural antihistamines. And so using those to that angle. Nettles, same thing, and bromelain. And so I have various products that I like that blend these, but taking some beforehand and then again afterward for what I'm suggesting at this time. I'm also using a lot of homeopathic remedies with people for the vaccine. So my favorite ones for vaccinations are arnica and ledum. And if you don't know what homeopathic remedies are, you can just ignore this section because I'm not going to get into a whole thing to explain it. But if you are familiar with homeopathics and you want to take a look at your books, or you already know remedies, these are the ones that I'm thinking about for the vaccination. And then lastly, I do think it's a great idea to put a little bit of arnica gel or cream topically on the site of the vaccination after, a couple hours later. So that's it. I think that's at my, yeah, wow, that was fast. Okay, that's about 10 minutes. So let me stop sharing. Went through that pretty fast. Thanks for your attention, everyone. I hope that was informative for you. If you have questions for me, feel free to type them in the chat bar. And I'm happy to discuss anything from my slides that you want to go into in more depth. But I also want to be mindful that we have enough time for any additional questions and also for Dana's mind-body practice.
Okay, so there's lots of questions, and there were also 3 questions before, but I think let's start with Linda's question. It's important. This is completely incorrect, Linda. There's no such an idea that taking anti-inflammatory before vaccination will do anything to the vaccine. It's completely incorrect. Vaccine is not an inflammatory response. Vaccine is an antibody response. It has nothing to do with trying to lower inflammatory response. I wouldn't take Motrin necessarily unless you have symptoms. I think what Dr. Orceyre just suggested is a lot more logical. This is the protocol I did with both of the vaccines, and I had 0 side effects with either, except for the sore arm. So it's not about inflammation, it's about lowering histaminergic reaction, or I would call it a personal reaction to the modified viral particles. And you want to have antibody response, but you don't want to have a side effect. So it doesn't mean that lowering inflammatory response is going to cause some kind of delayed reaction by antibodies or concerns. So, Deirdre, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Well, I have been a little curious about that because some of the side effects do seem to be inflammatory in nature, but I know that that is not the antibody response. Mm-hmm. So there does seem to be an additional inflammatory response from the vaccination, but I don't totally understand it yet. I don't know if anybody does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way I see it, it appears to be in part histaminergic reaction and in part delayed hypersensitivity reactions. So those are more of allergies, like they're not really.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was saying inflammatory, I was including histaminergic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I actually feel strongly that those should be regulated down, especially in those patients who are, for whatever the reason, are sensitive or have predisposition to the allergies. And that includes myself. And that's why I did this protocol that Dr. Orceyre was describing. And you know, I think it's actually reasonable to take for most people, frankly, or at least for those who are really concerned that they're going to have some side effects.
Yeah, and the herbs that I listed, you know, in particular, vitamin C and quercetin are the most antihistamine.
Right, right. So, you know, we recorded, but anyway, I like this product called Dehist, or Natural Dehist, which is it's an orthomolecular product. It's just everything in one capsule, and I took 3 capsules 3 times a day, starting the day before and for 2 days after. So we only have a few minutes, so I want to take those 3 questions that was submitted prior to the meeting. Thank you, whoever sent them. So the double masking.
I just want to say, Misha, I can respond to a couple of the specific questions from my talk. I'll respond in the chat bar.
Oh, great. Okay. So the double masking, I think, is a great idea. I've read somewhere that double masking, like let's say a cloth mask and then the surgical on top. First of all, you could decrease risk of your cloth mask getting soiled faster, but also they seem to work a lot better. There's some information that they get us close. They get pretty close to N95 masks when you're double masking like that. So I definitely encourage that if you want. I think it all comes down to what is the suspected risk of exposure. You know, if you are on a plane, you're very concerned, or in a very small environment for a period of time, I'd probably still wear N95. But if you're in some other environment, I think double masking is a great idea. Okay. What's your opinion about the, number of recent articles focused on availability of monoclonal antibody therapy in early stages. This is where we unfortunately had a kind of a flop. They do seem to work, but they never get there on time, so to speak. So yes, GW has this treatment. The problem is it has to be requested very early, even before patient comes into the hospital, because they're only effective in early phases before patient actually has to be hospitalized. So it's pretty complicated. You have to call the doctor has to approve it, so to speak. You have to come into the special administrative location where it's get infused. So unfortunately, it doesn't sound like this therapy taken off very well. And I've heard stories that some hospitals have large stock that basically not used at all, which is very unfortunate because they actually probably do work. But it's the coordination and timing, which seems like a problem for everything, including vaccines, including, you know, every step of the way. We seem to be miscoordinated. Okay, and then the last of those three questions, real quick. So when does really immunity kicks in from the vaccines? Well, so it's not really 100% clear, but it definitely by week 4 after second vaccine, that should be at a maximum defense by that point. But some defense occurs pretty quickly, probably within a week. We do know that even between the two vaccines, there's a pretty significant protection. So for Moderna, I think it's up to 70%, and for Pfizer, somewhere around 50 or 60%. And if anybody read or seen other numbers, feel free to put them in the box. So you are getting protected partially pretty quickly, and the maximum protection gets, you know, about a month after the second dose. So that should give you a good idea. Okay. We're right at 2:30, and I think what we should do, unless there's really some, Deirdre, I don't know if you've been screening the questions, but unless there's something really urgent.
Yeah, I've been screening them and answering a couple of them.
We'll go straight to the our practice for today. But let me just take also a look. Okay.
I just want to say one thing. GD asked about inflammatory foods. So inflammatory foods vary, but person to person. So one food might be great for one person and inflammatory for another. But there is a list of the most common inflammatory foods. And I would say at the top of the list is sugar, grains, gluten in particular, and dairy. And then other people have, there are other food groups that are inflammatory for some people, like eggs for some people, nightshades for some people, nuts for some people. So that part really varies.
Okay, so let's talk about Gnj vaccine next time. It's just been approved. It's what I was suspecting to be approved, and I mentioned it over the last several meetings. It's a one shot. It's supposed to be a good vaccine, but I think let's just, because we're not going to have time to go into it. But I want to address Arit's question real quick. So it's a very important question. So Arit asked, if the test is positive for COVID antibodies, should you wait on getting vaccine? So there's two ways to answer this. The one is, if you had symptoms of COVID and you have positive antibodies, I would wait. And the reason I would wait is, Angela can... Yeah. The reason I would wait is because the availability of vaccines, because you probably partially protected. The formal guidance on CDC is that you can wait at least 3 months, although some hospitals are doing 30 days after the symptoms of COVID resolve. But if you had symptoms, you have positive antibodies, you're probably protected. I probably wouldn't get vaccinated. However, if you never had symptoms and you just have positive antibodies, that means nothing, because it could be a false positive test. And if you're in an area of population where the probability of you having the illness, just from looking at the population, is very low, the chances are that this test was false positive, because the test has about 5 to 10% false positive rate. And that rate can be higher than the rate of chances of you actually having a true infection in the past. And then you should be vaccinated. So unfortunately, but it's a really important question. I hope everybody registered what I said. So I guess with that, unless, Deirdre, do you want to add anything real quick? Is there anything else on the question?
No, I'm still answering some questions.
Okay. All right. Well, Dana, thank you so much. Take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Picking up on what Dr. Orceyre mentioned earlier, it's actually been 6 months since I last led a practice. Hard to believe we've been going at this for such a long time. And all of us experiencing stress. And so obviously a lot of the mind-body practices that we've engaged in over the course of the mindfulness experience have focused on the breath. And so we'll return there today, but I just wanted to talk briefly before we jump into the practice about one of the main purposes of yoga, which a lot of people are not aware of, is actually to still the fluctuations of the mind. And one of the main ways to do that is to meditate. But as many of you probably know who have attempted to meditate, or even if you are a regular meditator, it's often very challenging, especially in this day and age, to keep the mind from wandering while you're attempting to sit still and just observe your thoughts. Our minds are built to think, and we look on the past, we anticipate the future, and our thoughts sometimes create a lot of the stress that we experience. And so we use our breath in yoga to try to help us still those thoughts, to help the thoughts take a back seat and to make our meditation practice just a bit easier. So it's not that we are attempting to remove all thoughts, it's that we're attempting to neutralize them, to allow us to just observe them and to really be in the moment. And so the breath practices in yoga, some of which were corroborated by the book that Dr. Kogan mentioned last week, the James Nestor Breath book. He talks about the importance of breathing in and out through the nose, which is a very key component in yoga. And also one of the practices today called Samavriti, or even breath, we focus on keeping the inhale and the exhale the same length. Of course, Dr. Kogan mentioned, and we practiced last week, the 2-to-1 ratio where the exhale is twice as long as the inhale. That's yet another example of a yogic breath practice that helps us both drop into the rest and digest mode, parasympathetic nervous system, by slowing down the breathing, slowing down the heart rate, lowering blood pressure, but also gives our mind a focus to help us still the pinging, the thoughts that keep popping up, and can help us calm both the body and the mind. So I invite you to take a comfortable seat. You want to sit tall, but still remain relaxed. You don't want to overdo it with the posture. If you prefer to lie down, if that's more comfortable for you, feel free. If you'd like to turn off your video so that no one's seeing you, that's fine too. And I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or at least make your gaze unfocused and soft as you start to focus more internally. And just begin by noticing the breath as it comes in through the nose and leaves through the nose. Again, in yoga, we breathe in and out through the nose, not the mouth. And try to make your breath, although natural, we're not manipulating it yet, just try to slow it down, make it smooth and steady. Do a brief scan of the body, just to release any physical tension you may be holding on to without even realizing it. So just as your eyes are closed and you're breathing naturally, effortlessly, notice if you're holding tension anywhere in the face, the jaw, the cheeks, the tongue. Let it go with the exhalation. Just say to yourself, let go. And then bring your mind to the tops of your shoulders. Notice if they may be hunched up too close to your earlobes, and release, let them go. Relax the tops of the shoulders. And let that tension melt away all the way down the arms into the hands and fingers, which can be resting on your lap or your thighs. And then begin to soften the torso, the chest, the belly, the ribs, the whole back body. We'll begin with the first breath practice of 3 today with what we call yogic breathing, or 3-part breath. And for some people who are unaccustomed to this practice, it helps to place one hand in the middle of the chest at the heart center and one hand on the belly, the navel center. Others prefer to put their hands above the waist to feel the ribs. It just gives you some physical feedback as we begin this breath practice. So just allow yourself to relax, and on the next inhale, feel the belly expand. The navel moves away from the spine. Begin to soften so that as you expand and continue your inhalation, the ribs also begin to expand, the waist. And then finally, the chest lifts as you complete your inhalation. And as you slowly start your exhale, bring the belly in, the navel comes closer to the spine. The ribs begin to contract and the chest releases. Let's try that again. Slowly inhaling as the belly relaxes and expands. And then bring that sense of expansion into the ribs, the waist, front and back, and then all the way up into the chest. And then as you exhale, the belly contracts, navel moving closer to the spine, ribs pulling in, chest releases. So this helps us slow down the inhale and the exhale. Try it again. Inhale, belly expansion, ribs and chest last. And then exhale as everything contracts, navel towards spine, ribs pulling in, chest releasing. And try a couple of rounds on your own time. Keeping your inhale smooth and steady and the exhale effortless. You notice that your mind starts to wander, bring it back to the breath, bring it back to the sensations in the body. And then if you have your hands placed anywhere on your chest or your belly or your waist, you can release them back to your lap and just let the practice go, return to normal breath. Still maintaining a slow, steady inhale and smooth, effortless exhale as we prepare for the next breath practice. I alluded to it earlier. It's mentioned in the breath book that the perfect inhale and exhale is 5.5 seconds in and 5.5 seconds out. And so in yoga, we call that samavriti, or even breathing, equal breathing. And so that's what we'll do next. If for some reason that's too long a breath practice for you, if it's not comfortable for you, let the practice go and just return to your natural breath. So let's begin on the next inhalation. Slowly inhale to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath and pause for a moment. And then slowly exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Empty out completely. Pause slightly. And then begin to gently inhale again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pause at the top of the inhale. And then gently begin to exhale, releasing slowly through the nose. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Empty out completely. Hold the breath out. And slowly, gently again, begin to inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Retaining at the top of the inhale. And then slowly beginning to exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Empty out completely and then continue for a few more rounds on your own. Inhaling slowly to 5, holding, and then exhaling slowly, counting to 5, emptying out, pausing before beginning the next round. Again, if you notice thoughts or feelings coming in, that's perfectly fine. Just allow it and see if you can notice and let them go. Next time you've completed a cycle, you've completely exhaled all the breath out, just return to your natural breath. Notice if it's a little freer, a little easier, a little smoother. And then we'll get ready for another breath practice. Those who practice yoga will be familiar with this one. It's alternate nostril breathing, or Nadi Shodhana. But rather than using our hands to actually close off a nostril, we're just going to practice it mentally, imagining that we're breathing through one nostril at a time. So I'll give you the instruction first, and then we'll walk through and practice it together. So when we begin, we'll imagine that we're breathing just through the left nostril, and then that we're exhaling just through the right. In the next cycle, we'll breathe in through the right and out through the left, and that's one complete round. So when you're ready, I'll guide you through it. Keeping your eyes closed still, focused internally, feeling the breath as it comes in and out of your body. Begin by imagining that we're inhaling just through the left nostril, slowly, smoothly. Imagining that it crosses over, and then you begin to slowly exhale, imagining it's exiting just through the right nostril. Begin to imagine you're inhaling just through the right. And crossing over and exhaling only through the left nostril. So that's one round. We'll repeat, inhaling through the left nostril. And exhaling through the right. Inhaling through the right. And exhaling through the left. Let's repeat. Inhale through the left nostril. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. And exhale through the left. And feel free to continue on your own. Inhaling, starting left, exhaling right, inhaling right, exhaling left. You want to release that practice and return to just breathing through both nostrils, counting to 5 and exhaling to 5. Practice which feels right to you in this moment. Wherever you are, finish the breath practice. If you're doing the alternate nostril breathing, when you get to the end, you're exhaling through the left nostril, just return to your natural breath. And keep breathing normally, naturally, slowing it down, keeping it smooth and steady. Using our breath practice to keep us focused on the present moment. We'll end with a brief guided meditation. So keeping your eyes closed or your gaze unfocused. Letting the breath just flow in and out naturally as you continue to relax. Keeping your attention still on the breath, feeling yourself in the room, sensing your body as a whole. Just relaxing and breathing. Begin to picture in your mind's eye the image of a mountain lake. Perhaps a lake you know well, or one you've seen in a photo, or one that your imagination is conjuring up right now. See if you can bring the image of the mountain lake into vivid focus in your mind's eye. As you're focusing on the lake, notice the qualities of the lake, a body of water held in a basin in the earth's surface. And watch and observe the surface of the lake, noticing that it's ever changing and yet always itself. You may notice the surface of the lake change as the sun moves across the sky, seeing light reflected off the water in different ways. And as the weather changes, so too does the surface of the lake. On a calm day, the surface might be like a mirror, reflecting everything perfectly that goes by. Imagine clouds and birds or trees that might surround the lake. And of course, on a sunny day, the sun, as it journeys across the sky, and on a clear night. And of course, there are times when the surface might become choppy on a windy day. The light and sparkles in a different way. The waves churn up. And of course, the lake may change as the seasons do. And depending on where it's located in the winter, the surface might actually freeze. But whether day or night, regardless of the weather or the season or the year, as the lake changes, the lake remains its own essential nature. So as you continue to imagine the lake in your mind, become aware of the many ways in which our own minds are like the surface of the lake. Sometimes calm and reflective, and sometimes choppy and stirred up. We realize that even when our mind is upset or reactive, or we're confronting difficulties, we can drop down beneath the surface of our mind's waves and find stillness and calm that's always available in each moment, with each breath. and experience peace. And so begin to increase your inhalation, deepen your inhale. If it feels nice to stretch in any way, yawn, bring yourself back. If you turned off your video, you can return to the video. We still have a few minutes remaining. I know there were a lot of questions, but I hope you enjoyed the practice, the breath practice today, and know that those are always available to you at any time. I hope it brought you a sense of peace, and I wish you peace, a peaceful weekend. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Dr. Orceyre. Wonderful to have you both, and thank you for practice and for such a wealth of information from Dr. Orceyre. Indeed, we do have a couple of questions, so I don't know if there are any urgent.
Dr. Kogan, I just want to say one thing. I'm going to post a link in the chat box to my presentation to the PDF. So I know Janet sends them out, but in case you want to take a look at it sooner, you can click on the link.
Mm-hmm. And I want to correct myself. J&J has not been approved. They just submitted emergency use authorization today, based on their phase 3, based on their trial results. So. And I think we somehow managed to get all other questions through, right?
Yeah, maybe if you have a question that wasn't answered, I tried to get everything, but if there's a question that wasn't answered, go ahead and post it in the chat box.
Oh, and also just FYI, those of you who's going to see my Washington Post article about copper today, the copper and silver in the masks is a little controversial. The problem is, it sounds like a great idea. Both copper and silver antibacterial and antiviral. The problem is, you really can't very well manage those. Like washing them becomes a problem because those materials are in a very thin mesh, and they're probably not going to be maintained. Their integrity is going to be compromised probably even after first wash. So I haven't really looked at the commercialization of this technology. But if any of you looking into that, please do your own research. It's a great idea. They probably are enhancing efficacy of the masks, but practically whether or not they're proven to be effective, I don't know. But the filter choices for the masks, just make sure they're charcoal. Those seem to be better. And you don't need to change them very frequently, but probably every couple of weeks, and they're pretty inexpensive. I like the ones that have the vents and then the charcoal goes around. But the problem with the vents, you're not supposed to use them. Like airplanes, airline companies actually will prohibit you to get with those on a plane. But I love them for the exercise. They're much easier to breathe with. That's just my personal opinion. And then there are charcoal filters that come with those.
There is one question, Misha, that if someone has mild symptoms, when should they get tested, at what point, or when should they get tested, when should they quarantine?
Right. So, if you have symptoms, your test should come back positive, because it means you've been infected for quite a while, for probably 3 to 7 day or kind of range. So the test should already be positive by that point. So go get tested as soon as you're symptomatic. If you don't want to get tested and you want to quarantine yourself, we used to say 14 days. There is a belief now that's probably 10 is adequate. I'd probably still stick with 14 days if you very mild symptoms and for whatever reason you decide not to get tested. Testing doesn't really change your quarantine, but you may want to get tested just in case the COVID is not the only illness, as you all know. So I've had what I was convinced was COVID about 8 weeks ago. Turned out it wasn't. The test was negative. So there's stuff going around. So flu and regular colds, they're still here. Yeah.
I have a special question. If you, I believe my immunity is very high, and I'm taking the vaccine tomorrow.
Okay.
How would that act? Anybody knows?
What do you mean? Would you have side effects, you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good question. You know, we think that actually side effects are not all that severe. They're common, like the sore arm is pretty common. You know, low-grade fevers are pretty common. And actually, the stronger their immune system, the more side effects you're supposed to have. That's sort of the logic. You know, but, you know, I took all those anti-inflammatories and the homeopathics, and I didn't have any except for the sore arm. So I don't know. I think your question doesn't have an easy answer. Just get the vaccine. If you want to take some of the supportive items, homeopathy and herbs, vitamin C, quercetin, and acetylcysteine that Dr. Orceyre was talking about, definitely do that. And crossing fingers, you'll be just fine, and you will be just fine because
I'm kind of anxious.
In the worst case scenario, you're going to have a mild cold for a few days, and you'll report to us next Friday. And by the way, if everybody's okay, if you got the vaccine, say something. I mean, I think it'd be good for us to all learn from each other what side effects we are having.
Share your vaccine experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I actually just had I'm not going to share her name, but I was just messaging right before the class with someone who on the day 3 started developing side effects like a low-grade fever and cold-like symptoms. So, you know, I think more we learn, the better we're all prepared to handle it.
Dr. Kogan?
Yes.
This is Jane, and I'm 75 and a half, and I took the Pfizer last Thursday. And the only thing I felt was a little bit dizzy. And so I sat back down and waited a bit and then got up and left.
Good.
And didn't have any more side effects after that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think I also had a dizzy episode for maybe 30 seconds, about half an hour later. I just drank more water. But I went into both vaccines fasting. I always go into anything that feels challenging with a fasting mode. So like today I had dental work, those of you who heard. So I've been fasting for almost 24 hours. I tend to do better when I do that, but that's just me. If you're not used to fasting, please don't experiment. Not a good time.
Yeah, no.
If you are doing intermittent fasting, you may want to consider that. That's another thing that, even though I don't know if I have any proof of this or any real evidence. Well, I think our time's up. Again, Dana, Deirdre, thank you very much.